they could do it.
So you both called that. You both have gone for Watford unaided. What do you think the score will be? Is it a 1-0? Is it Watford easily? What do you think, NVD?
Yeah, 2-1 to Watford.
2-1 Watford.
I think this will be a close game. I think also a 2-1. Actually, I would agree with that. I don't think it's going to be a clean sheet for Watford. Not at all.
But 2-1 Watford. We think Vardy probably is back. He might be back on the score sheet. And for Watford, who do you think is worth looking at?
Definitely Sarr. I think I think under Pearson he's been a good buy, and he's been in, to be honest, good form, and he's built upon that. And he was super dangerous the last home game against Liverpool. He was the form player, and he was actually kind of the top performing player in the FPL as well from a points perspective. So yeah, he's definitely dangerous. And then you've got Deeney as well, he's a handful really, which kind of opens up space and play for some of the other players for Watford. So yeah, it's a couple to look out for. Could take defenders out of the game for Leicester.
This will be a perfect game for him up front against Leicester as well.
Yeah, he put himself about, won't he? Distasteful Deeney up there, and Sarr, as you mentioned, NVD. I mean, got to be hard to mean. What a sumptuous finish that second one was against your boys. Brilliant.
I forgot it, mate. I forgot it.
Made my season. And then the second game, Bournemouth versus Palace. Palace have just won 1-0. Do you reckon that they'll keep that up against Bournemouth? Fellas, what are you thinking?
I think Bournemouth, to be honest, they look good again, last week. And, they was unlucky the week before as well. I think this is time where Bournemouth are going to win. Crystal Palace, yes, they're a solid team, but they're more solid at home, like most teams. But I think it's time for Bournemouth to really get some more goals. It looks like Callum Wilson, obviously Callum Wilson being back on the score sheet, that's going to give him confidence. Joshua King the week before. And I think that, it's do or die for Bournemouth. So at home, Crystal Palace, this will be the game they'll be looking at to go, okay, this is how we get points and this is how we stay up this season. The rest of the games, they've got quite a few hard games, in the running as well. So this is do or die. And I think Bournemouth will nick this. I think it's going to be a clean sheet as well. I think it's going to be a 2-0 to Bournemouth.
I wouldn't disagree with you at all there. I think you're fairly right on what you're saying. And it is do or die for Bournemouth right now. They're in that 18th spot. Callum Wilson, he scored 2 in the last 4. King got 1 against Chelsea. But the other thing for me with Bournemouth is this is it for them. Like, if they cannot beat Palace, and then in their next 2 games they've got Wolves and then they've got Newcastle. So these next 3 games are really telling for Bournemouth. And I think Eddie Howe's really going to be getting that message home to his players that, look, you've got to do this because if you want to stay in this league, these are the 3 games that we need to do it. If we can beat Palace and we can beat Wolves, especially Wolves where some of the others are not playing around there, that's it for Bournemouth. So I agree with you there. I do think that Bournemouth might do it. Callum Wilson, strong shout as well, 2 and 4 for him, worth calling out, worth looking at. Moving from there, you've got Brighton versus Arsenal. NVD, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, an interesting one because, Brighton away at Wolves, you thought they might have got a hiding, to be honest, and that was a no-score draw. And again, the game week before them, they were close against Palace, and they did ultimately lose that 1-0. So they've not been terrible for them. And I think the game before that they drew against Sheffield United. Arsenal have started, and I think you mentioned it at the start of the show in terms of Arteta is starting to get a little bit more out of his players in terms of Ozil and naturally Aubameyang's in good form apart from this past game week. Won't mention Nikita. I think, to be honest, irrespective of that, Brighton will kind of be tough at home, but I think Arsenal will just nick this. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a scrappy 1-0, either Lacazette or Aubameyang on the score sheet. But yeah, I think this is how it's going to play out, unfortunately.
And mate, go on, Nikita. That's all I've got to say. But you mentioned him there. He's not going to do anything. Is that part of the reason I have this vision is because up against West Ham and they got Brighton. They've got some good games coming up. Arsenal. They ain't got Norwich after the blank game week, and then after that, Arsenal Wolves. Is there a chance for Nikita, or do you think he was just playing because they wanted Lacazette to be rested, or does Arteta actually like him?
I think Arteta does like him. And looking at Arsenal's form, you're right. They drew 2, a few weeks ago. They got a result against Chelsea and 2 draws, but then they've had 3 wins on the bounce. Beating Newcastle 4-0, don't forget, and then Everton 3-2. They're scoring a lot of goals, right? West Ham did well, I think, last week to really keep them from scoring, and we kind of our best form of defence at the moment was going in attack, and I think that worked well. But I don't see Brighton behaving the same way. I think Brighton are going to be in a bit of trouble if they lose this one because they're only 2 points above the 3 teams that are in 16th, 17th, and 18th. So I think this could be a nervy game for Brighton in front of their home fans. They haven't won in 5 games. I think this could be time for Arsenal. And yes, Nikita could get on a score sheet, mate.
That's what I wanted to hear, mate. Brilliant. So Arsenal probably going to beat Brighton. Jumping into Man City v Burnley. A one-line this for you boys. I think Man City, not really much to play for. Probably be rotating their squad, trying to keep people fresh. We discussed it already. And Burnley, not a bad team, but if anyone's going to win it, it's surely going to be City, though. They're at home, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, Burnley haven't lost in the last 5, but you're right.
Agree. Man City's team, even their B team could beat pretty much anyone as well, right? And because it's at home, I think it'd be a no-brainer for this one. Agreed.
I would shout out Jesus for the game just because I think he's not played for the last few, so it might be him coming in, depending obviously what happens with Arsenal tomorrow. But at the same time, it's just so difficult to pick a City player. So only real advice there is keep the man who is quality, De Bruyne. I wouldn't be getting rid of him from my team because I think over the rest of the season he still won't have it. But then Newcastle versus Sheffield United.
Lord Lundstrum has got to stay in this side, and I think us fantasy Premier League managers will be banking on that for us who have kept the faith in him. Sheffield United, they've had a good run of 4 results. They haven't lost in 4 games. So the one slip up was against Brighton, but then last week obviously beat Norwich. I think this will be a good game. I think it'll be an open game, but Sheffield United are just hard to beat, even away from home. Newcastle. Yeah. Their lad Fernandez, who I've got at the back, he's done well the last few weeks. He's actually been my saving grace for the last 2 weeks as well. So he does well. He gets up the pitch. He can nick a goal as well. Newcastle at home, they're a lot better at home. Newcastle, right? When they're playing in front of their own fans. I could see this Sheffield United though. I think this could be a 3-1 to Sheffield United. I think I see lots of goals.
So Newcastle did win 1-0 on the weekend against Southampton. The St. Maximan, who you've called out before, Perez, he was on the score sheet. Chip over the keeper once he sneaked in and got it up there. Yeah. Newcastle, you say they're better at home, but they did win that game away. Southampton were down to 10 men. But one player I saw for Newcastle that had come back in was Dwight Gale. And he's played the last 3, actually, looking at it. And pretty cheap, and he makes a lot of chances. He gets in a lot of goal-scoring positions. His finishing's not the best. But I think, for this game with Newcastle at home against Sheffield United, he might get a couple of sniffs at goal. But again, to what you're saying, Sheffield United very strong, defensively very good. Still within a shout of the top 5 as well, let's not forget. They're on 43 points, level with Wolves, but a game in hand. And if they can win their game in hand, they actually go above United into 5th. So it's a lot to play for Sheffield United. And, coming to that business end of the season, they've got a lot riding on this. So I don't think they'll want to lose it. So 3-1 Sheffield United, not a bad shout. I'll stick with you on that. Then we got Norwich versus Southampton. NVD, surely Norwich are down by now, aren't they? This is just a matter of...
It is a formality, unfortunately. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, I guess, how much pride Delia instills in them in order to get a result at home. I think kind of, unlucky against Sheffield United. It was 1-0, so... And then the week or 2 weeks ago, they beat Leicester. I mean, Southampton, they lost against Newcastle, and then West Ham the week before that. So obviously, not the best run of form. I don't know. I think kind of the sentimental part of me is actually going to go for Norwich. I think they're just going to try and, like you said, see out the season with a bit of pride and, kind of entertain their home fans. And I think Southampton is probably kind of a good team to do that against, and I reckon they'll do the business. I don't think it'll be a kind of a vastly high-scoring game, but I'm going to go 2-1 Norwich.
2-1 Norwich, and we all know if Norwich are going to score, there's going to be Pukki in the limelight and potentially Campbell, one of the two. When he does him with a few assists, what a perm. Beautiful. And Southampton, though, lads, they have got a bad run of form. They've lost 4 of the last 5. Danny Ings, and I was watching them very closely against Newcastle in that last game. Yeah, they went down to 10 players after 28 minutes. That didn't massively help them. But the reason I was watching is because I've had Ings in the team now for 3 weeks, and I was the last person to get him. Ever since I've had him, he hasn't scored at all. And I'm just wondering, for Ingsy, it's 1 goal in 7. Is he worth continuing with? And the reason that I don't think he is and I actually feel like getting him out, is they're playing two up front now, and they don't play well together. It's Long and Ings, and they both try and prove that they're the better striker. They don't play together. Like every time Long gets the ball, he just shoots. He could have passed to Ings and set him up one-on-one. Do you feel that Ings' time is done? I mean, it's like the Vardy question. Vardy is a different player.
It is very similar. It's very similar to the Vardy question, actually. You're right, because, those who have stuck out with Vardy, I think a lot of people lost patience last week, when he had a knock and he got injured. So he was transferred out, right, by the thousands, right? Danny Wings is definitely a very similar situation. It's like, do you stick or twist with him? I personally think he's going to get back on the score sheet. I think this is the perfect game for him, right? It's at Norwich. Southampton, whilst they're not safe completely yet, they have got a bit of a gap, so they won't be playing under as much pressure as the teams below them. And I think I can see this being Ings a double whammy for Ings. So I'm going to stick with him.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, fellas, what you've made there. It's a very, very astute sort of weighing up of that situation. So probably worth keeping Ings for this week if you are looking towards that game week 31. He might be the player you drop then, get another striker in, and then after that, Southampton, away to Watford. Then they've got a Man City game on the cards. Then they've got Everton. Then Man United. So some tough games coming up for Saints, definitely. And I think Ings kind of has thrived in the easier games, potentially, at the beginning of the season and midway through the season, and now he's coming back into difficulty. So agree with you. You've sold me, Pellers. I'm keeping him in against Norwich. We'll be looking at him, though, with question marks if he doesn't score in that game. And that leads us into the last game of the Saturday. It's Villa versus Chelsea. Villa have lost 4 in a row. Chelsea are really looking like a team that's turned a corner again. They've not been beaten in the last 3, won 2 of those. Surely this is a Chelsea win. I can't see anything other than the Chelsea win. What do you reckon, 3-0 Chelsea, or do you think Villa are going to turn it around and beat them?
No, I think you're right. I don't think there'll be a shock. I think Villa may nick a goal. To be honest, they're of course playing at home, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Jimmy Fergus has got Chelsea all over it, and this is their point to prove that actually they've not, that they can convincingly beat Everton, and they really need to back. They need to back that with another win, especially as kind of the spots for Champions League kind of quite close as well, to be honest. So, yeah, I think the pressure's on a little bit. So, yeah, I see them turning a good performance again and beating them comprehensively. And
Chelsea did Everton like a kipper, didn't they? 4-0 all over Everton.
4-0.
They are really looking decent. They beat Liverpool in the FA Cup 2-0. They look like they're hungry again, and they are actually pressing higher up the pitch, and there's a bit more energy all of a sudden in this Chelsea team. They've brought in the young Scottish lad, Sean's mate, is it Gilmore? And he looks pretty decent, doesn't he?
Happy Gilmore.
Happy Gilmore. And Mount
certainly was happy.
We used to love to Mount, and he looked like he was back in amongst things again. But yeah, Chelsea. I mean, it's the most interesting part of the Premier League now, isn't it? It's that 4th spot really. The top 4. We know who's going to win the league. So that Chelsea, Man United, Wolves, Sheffield United. I think that's the most interesting run-in for the rest of the season, apart from obviously the relegation scrap as well. So yeah, I see Chelsea absolutely consolidating on their win last week at 4-0. They have tons of confidence. Aston Villa, the direct opposite of that, really struggling and can't seem to buy a win at the moment. So it's going to be tricky, but Chelsea got to beat it.
Yeah, and I think a shout out for Chelsea isn't an obvious one, but Alonso is in form at the moment, playing well. He's got himself back in the team, and he has really given a lot of people something to think about with 2-3 goals in the last 3 games and a clean sheet against Everton. Yeah. Definitely one that's up there, and he's only he played for the last 3 games in a row, so I'd be looking at him for sure. Mount, you called him out. The thing you've got to remember about Mount is last 9 games he's only done 1 assist and 2 assists, 1 goal. It's too varied. He's not a certainty, and he is actually an injury doubt for this game as well. So
right.
Chelsea to win, not sure where it's coming from.
Yeah, 75% chance playing is sort of a good shout. And Alonso as well is only 3.9% ownership, so he's a massive differential. So if Chelsea get clean sheets and Alonso keeps doing it, then that could really help you in the run-in to the end of the season.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good point. And then on to the Sunday then, lads. Got West Ham versus Wolves, which is